Today's the best day of my life, Ben. How you doing?
Exact same thing, dude. I couldn't be happier. This is the best day ever, and we're talking Zcash, man. So, where to start with this, Keith? Where to start? I'll give the floor back to you.
You know, Zcash is currently on a generational run, and I think that is going to be the place to start. So let me pull up the chart real quick.
Yeah, do it up. Let's show people the numbers. Oh gosh, there's my.
Whoa.
Whoops. Sorry. Go
Whoa.
go ahead. I knocked over a water bottle.
It sounded something like something expensive broke, bro.
It was a blendy blender. Shout out John Katz.
All right. So Zcash. My goodness. Ladies and gentlemen, it has also retraced pretty hard here in the past couple of days. But went up to as high as 746, it looks like, on this particular exchange, after having formed a base earlier in just September of around $50. So you just saw over a 10x in the price of
Quickly.
Zcash within a month.
It's devastating to see. I have none.
Devastating. And it's crazy because people have been talking about Zcash over the past year, right? Like it's kind of gotten a little bit of a buzz. I'm only seeing that in retrospect, really. But it's definitely started to pick up, and maybe part of it is the actual narrative around the Genius Act and the Clarity Act and all the institutions getting involved, right? So people have started to realize that like crypto is not what it's not heading in the direction of where it was originally supposed to go.
Totally. Great point. I think the more that you understand crypto, the more that you understand the demand or need for something like Zcash is trying to achieve, right? And I think that's what we'll talk a lot about in this episode, is to explain what Zcash is, and then the bigger overarching theme of security and privacy and why that's such a big deal. There's some other characters in this space, but it's a really, really important problem, and we'll try to elaborate on that more. Anything else on the price that you want to talk about?
No, not in particular. I just wanted to go ahead and say that, look, you're talking about a 2,000% gain from the base that formed in August. So this is a really big deal. And honestly, it might say a lot about the future of altcoins and the fact that this is just even possible, right? To see a token come out of the depths of despair and just rally up 10x in 30 days. Pretty wild.
It's also important, I think, for people who haven't experienced multiple cycles to see that this kind of stuff does happen, right? And when you think about this, if this happens in even a few more projects that are more mainstream, more people are holding, that changes sentiment very quickly.
Facts. Yeah, that's the thing here, is like a lot of people don't hold this one in particular, but this does happen. And what happens is they just start sprouting up. Like, I don't even know how to, I wish I had a good analogy. But you just start seeing stuff just start flying, and it's random projects sometimes. And that's usually what it starts out as. It's just one, right, that makes a big run like this. And then we'll see what happens in the next couple of months. But I wanted to share a meme with everybody.
Yeah.
Because it actually is very relevant to this, and it is a part of the phase of the market that we might be in. So let me see. Can you see this?
Yes, sir. You're good.
Okay. So CNBC put out an article, and maybe this is old, I don't even know, but it's a meme here. So owning crypto may make you more desirable on the dating scene, study finds.
Oh, I feel like that's so like counterintuitive. We get roasted as crypto bros.
Exactly. So Link said crypto is freaking back. And it's just a funny thing, because like anyone who's a part of the culture knows that, yeah, it's kind of a joke that like if you're a crypto person, you're a nerd, or just like a cult type of person, or like, there's something, you probably got something wrong with you, if you're super deep into crypto. And in some ways it's a good thing, and in others, to the normal rest of society, they're like, what is this?
Yeah, but those narratives can change when the prices start moving, and especially when sources that these people trust are saying it's a good thing and it's legitimized. Then people will be like, who are those crypto bros? Like, I bet you in the next 6-12 months there'll be a lot of creators that are probably girls being like, where my crypto bros at? Like where are they at? Teach me about crypto, all this stuff. So that's the nature with any sort of new tech. Like, look at the internet. The only reason that we think it's normal is because we use it every day. It wasn't always normal. And the people who made the most amount of wealth from that, especially from nothing, like they were seen as massive nerds and weirdos at first too.
100%, man. And 2021, we saw that sentiment change. Like, to be honest, that article probably is from 2021. I'm just gonna be honest.
Mm.
Because
Wishful thinking.
yeah, because that's what happened, right? Like in Miami in particular, right? Like what happened, everyone was paying attention to the crypto guys, not even just that, but they had all this money, right? So they're going out, they're spending it, they're throwing money literally at the clubs. I'm not there. Look, I'm just getting the reports, all right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just like, okay, like Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? Like huge in Miami. These guys are going out on these boats. Still nerds, let's be clear. But at least it looks cool for anyone who's new to
What
that.
up to everyone in the chat? We appreciate having you here. Say hello, say hello. We appreciate
What's
you here
up,
live.
Shanice,
You are our
Dave,
favorites. What up,
Underdog,
people? What up?
Jesse? I saw you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. With
Um,
the NFT mania was crazy, and that whole thing was insane. I told you the story before when I was at that YouTube conference, and the guy introduced himself as, "Don't worry, I'm cool. I'm an ape." And I was like, I feel like that's not what you should say. What I mean? I feel like that's the total opposite. But like, that really opened my eyes to the fact that this thing is going to be real. And I think it's hard for people to grasp these things because they don't look at the parallels in terms of like what is something right now and what will it become. Like everyone's so fixated in terms of what does this mean to me right now. People they really struggle with projecting outwardly. And I'm sure Zcash, why they built this project in the first place was because they saw that privacy would be a massive problem. So do you want to dive deeper into like what Zcash is?
yes. Let's talk about what I know about Zcash.
Let's do
Now,
it.
when Bitcoin came out, it was originally supposed to be this kind of like freedom money, right? Privacy protecting freedom, unstoppable money. Now, from the beginnings of the release of Bitcoin, apparently Satoshi Nakamoto was out there on forums
Mm,
saying that there's like some improvements that are going to need to be made in order for the privacy aspect of this to actually work out. Okay. And so um, what we saw was that some people saw those messages and they started to work on those things from a very long time ago. And this is what essentially Zcash was born out of, was people thinking about, okay, what kind of technology can we be implementing to make sure that the privacy of this blockchain future that we're building toward is an option at least. And
totally.
so, yeah, the solution that has been developed has been called a zero knowledge proof. Okay. And this is something that you see all over the place, really. But what Zcash has done is built that into the actual fundamental blockchain itself.
Mhm.
So we can start talking a little bit about ZKPs. What is a zero knowledge proof? If you think that's where we're at, what do you
Are
think?
slots still open, Keith? Do you think for your mastermind, can Jesse still join?
Yeah, of course. Just go through the links on my YouTube channel. Yep.
Cool, cool. Yeah, so one point that I wanted to mention is I was listening to a bunch of episodes in preparation for this one, and it was with the founders, and I really loved how he framed what privacy is because it shows you how you have to systemize thinking to get to the outcome you wanted. He said privacy is the absence of information leakage. And so that really speaks to like, I don't think people would typically describe that as what privacy is, but to its core, that's the most important thing. And there are other people on the market who are trying to solve this exact problem of like privacy things. Monero is probably the biggest one, wouldn't you say? The biggest competitor.
Yes. Yes. And oh
And
my, do people love
oh,
their Monero?
yeah, why? Because it seems like when I was listening to the podcast, and granted, they were sources that were directly connected to Zcash, so definitely biased there naturally. But from when they were describing the tech, it seemed like Monero is a far worse solution to this problem, in my opinion. Like, obviously, I don't know enough to be like, so I would throw that as a question to you.
Yeah. So I'll speak to what I can,
Okay.
which is that the techniques that Monero is using it's called the scrambling. Okay. And so what they're trying to do is completely obfuscate any relation to from where a payment or a transaction or data is coming from and who the recipient is. So
Hmm.
every single like transaction, you get like a new address, right? Whereas on something like Zcash, from what I understand, you wouldn't have to do all that. And so the problem with having the mixing solution or scrambling solution, I think it's called mixing. I don't know what I just called it, is that you have no trace, right? And so even if you wanted to know, you couldn't. And what Zcash is all about is having the optionality, right? Do I want to reveal information or not, right? Do I want to connect one transaction to the next one or not? And that is what I think could be superior about the technology is that fundamentally you have optionality built into it, right? So
Totally.
that's what I would say.
Yeah, and then how the guy who was one of the founders explained it, that basically he said that Monero is basically using a bunch of, let's say, decoys to play a game of, like, which cup has the ball in it, basically, of like, how can you know because there's a bunch of decoys here? And then so his whole core thesis of how he sees what security is, he's like, that's you're still releasing some information, and that's a problem, especially over a long enough period of time, right? Because he's like, okay, let's say there's 30 decoys, but you're still involved in that. You're still one of the 30. You just made it a lot easier to find who this person is.
Love it. Love it. What you're saying makes a lot of sense. And the idea in my head is um, like when it comes to privacy, you want to have like a zero chance of an incident, right? You want there to
Totally.
be zero probability of there being a problem. And with Monero, it sounds like that's not the case. Whereas with Zcash, right, like it's fundamentally a
It is.
closed loop, right? Whereas it sounds like with Monero, it's like there's still like open loops.
A little bit, yeah, pieces to it. Can you explain why this is such a problem, right? Because when you hear this stuff, people instantly go to being worried about like, wouldn't only criminals want this? Like, why do I need privacy with my transactions? And then let's try to relate it to real world things that already happen now and why they're built in a certain way to make that a big deal. I have some examples too, but I want to throw that to you.
Well, I mean, the first thing that does come to my mind is actually what Bud just said in the chat, right? Like privacy uh, is not necessarily something that actually works at scale for everyone in a society because we have a lot of bad actors, and bad actors have access to very powerful weapons in the forms of technology,
Hmm.
right? And so we can believe that like privacy is fundamentally a human right. I don't disagree with that. I think in practice, the way that that's going to play out is that bad people are going to be able to get away with doing really, really bad things. And so, um, having a path to figuring out the information, right, allows us to know that in case of a nuclear threat, as an example,
Mm.
there's a way for someone to step in and prevent that from occurring. So, um, I'm not saying that I agree with that philosophy. I'm just saying that like that's kind of the rules of the world that we live in now, and especially since like 2001, right? Like uh, we got to the point to where we're not going to have privacy fully, and that's what, by the way, what Zcash makes possible with the zero knowledge proof function. There are ways to go and get the information right when it's
Okay.
needed.
Yeah, 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 100%. And that's become an increasingly important thing as people realize how little privacy we actually have, right? And then the more that crypto gets adopted, like Bitcoin's obviously a massive one where everyone points to Bitcoin and there's a lot of great narratives attached to Bitcoin, but one that's not there is the whole privacy piece, right? Like it's they don't have your name, but they know your wallet, right? And so that's not exactly being fully anonymous. And Underdog has this one point here. I can spot the trends. Definitely harder to do the due diligence and analyze the fundamentals of so many different companies in these spaces for sure, though. And so, how I would answer that is that I don't know how important the fundamentals are in a lot of these projects that people are investing in because a lot of like the people that are going to use this aren't even really here yet. And so I'm also very biased by how I made my money in my life, understanding marketing and whatnot. So I usually go for signals and messages rather than fundamentals in this space because I feel like we're so ahead of the fundamentals. But I'd love to hear how you approach this because there's so much.
Yeah, I mean, my like guidance on that is pretty much the same thing. Like the thing that I always look at is the meta. Like who's involved with the project. Like things like that is kind of how I typically make decisions because that's going to give me a better idea of like, are the people who are coming up with this idea going to be capable of actually getting it done and like making it get used?
That's why most people fall for scams is because if they really looked into who was attempting to solve this problem, there's no way they could. Right? Like I remember when I heard about Safe Moon, I had made some money from it. Some other people I knew had made crazy money and they're debating should I sell? Should I sell? Should I sell? I'm like, well, it's your life. Do whatever the hell you want. But when I watched the interview with their founder. No shade to this guy, but I was like, "There's no world this guy can do what he's saying." Like I was like, "There's 0% chance, right?" And because like they're promising the world, and so even with all the money in the world, all the resources in the world, it'd be really hard to follow through. But this guy was a kid, like he was probably 20, like I want to say 6, 27 at the time. He was around our age at the time, and so I was like, there's no world this is happening. Then I text my friends, I'm like, I'd probably sell because I was like, there's no world he follows through on this.
Yeah, man. And this goes for anything too. Like, I hate to broaden it out and then I will bring it back in, but like I've done a lot of like trading in the futures market, and there's these concepts of these companies called like prop firms. Okay. And what they do is they like allocate you capital so that you can trade. And there's like a whole game around it because it's like demo accounts and like, are they really going to pay you out if you win and stuff like that. But anyways, when you have kids, they're like starting up these companies that you're investing your hard-earned money into, right? To use their product or whatever. Like you
Mhm.
just gotta be aware that like they're still a kid, and if they mess up, right? If they go to jail because they went out on a Saturday night and did something wrong, like your investment in these people could be gone. So, anyways, um, it's really important to think about in all of your life, where are you putting your resources toward, and are the people that are in charge of these situations, are they actually competent enough to get what you want to see done and see it through to the end? Same thing for a job, right? Like all these young people who are struggling to get a job, and you want to look at your job prospects, do not just go out here and take jobs from people who are not necessarily great leaders. Like wait it out, because you can end up in a way worse position where you've got someone who you no longer have a reference because this person is like not even someone who's referenceable either. Um, and anyways, so just wanted to point that out as a
No, fantastic
philosophy.
point. If you think to where you're trying to go and you assess the variables that are there, it's like anything in life. It's a really good analogy that you made where like, can I realistically get to where I'm trying to go? And then if you can't, if you know the probability is like so much lower than 50%, then why are you entering into that? Like you're the to blame at that point if you've done the thinking. Most people just don't do the thinking. I want to show this because speaking of people that we like is I try to look for signals. I look for signals within the market, and I also look for signals in terms of people that I trust their opinion. And so Naval is someone we've talked about so many times, and I wanted to buy Zcash, but I had no money because he was tweeting about Zcash for a while. And so I was like, if Naval, who doesn't really come out publicly and talk about finances all that much in terms of like specific assets, and he's out here publicly saying Bitcoin is insurance against fiat, fiat being cash, Zcash is insurance against Bitcoin. That's a very good sales pitch. And in there, I was like, wow, I wish I had money, but I didn't. And then another guy who talked about this too is Sean from My First Million. So
Mm,
two people that I respect a lot talking about this, which is why it was on my radar. And I had a feeling it was going to go. I just didn't have any money to participate.
love it, dude. That's actually really wild that both of them too um, were a part of that. And to bring some of this back to Zcash too, to the team itself, we should talk about this incident, right? That's happened over Twitter regarding one of the major developers of
Mm,
the Zcash ecosystem. So we have this person who is essentially one of the most uh, prolific developers and engineers in the privacy space, who has contributed a lot to the original Zcash code base, from what I understand. And reminder once again here that like the primary point of all of this is trying to have a way to preserve privacy in a world that is moving ever more digital. And there's been some controversy around who has been contributing to this project. A lot of people making jokes, a lot of people not really understanding the full picture. And um, essentially, I just wanted to share a little bit about like the competence, right, of the people that are working on Zcash and that have been for a long time. So this particular person here, we have Daira Emma Hopwood, from what I understand. And you can see here what this person describes themselves as. And from that, there has been a lot of, and I'll just read it for anyone who's listening and not watching. The bio says trans queer AUDHD. I'm not sure what that means. You know what that means, Ben?
I no, not a clue. I'll Google it.
Okay. And then it says, I want freedom. The right to self-expression. Everybody's right to beautiful, radiant things.
Okay, so it's a combo of autism and ADHD. I didn't know they had a combo.
Never heard of that. Never
I
heard
had
of
never
that.
heard of that either.
So, anyways, as this has kind of transpired that this is someone who's been a major developer on the project, there's been like this crazy uh, backlash on Twitter, and even this article, right, tries to blame these debates on social media around
The price drop, the
their
pullback.
identity for the price drop, which is absolutely ridiculous, to be clear. When you get a 10x, right, there's going to be some
There's gonna be a
reason,
pullback. It's
right,
not
that you get
because
a
the
pullback.
persons who helped build it is freaking trans. That's so stupid.
Yeah. So anyway, so this is what you get when you go to the mainstream media. They'll find the
So
reason for you.
for the whole meme side of our show, why don't we talk about like why people run with this stuff, right? Because I can see who people who are like on the right more so would look at that and be like, oh, well, if this thing's supposed to be private, if they believe in this whole like globalist agenda that is like more synonymous with the left, like I'm sure people would be looking at it and be like, oh, like they are in on it to like to make something that's private, but it's not private. Like I don't understand why people would care. You know, I'm trying to see angles for why someone would give a shit. Because if anything, for me, when I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, well, if this person has all these things that they self-identify that would naturally lead to people probably not being the nicest to them. Like you'd think that privacy would probably be important to them. And if they're really smart, I don't care how you identify. Why would that matter to me?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny to sidestep the question. It's like what you said at the end was the most important thing. Is like this person is the most passionate about this because of right who they
Yes.
are.
Wouldn't that make them better? Probably.
um, so whenever you have a founder or a founding contributor to something that is solving their own problem,
Yeah. That's
that's the
big.
person you want to cheer on.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought that up because it's impossible to explain that to people, how much the energy and the conviction in what you're doing matters, because it's the same within companies too. Like that's one of the hardest part about entrepreneurship is getting people who to work for you to believe in the vision enough to have the same sign of like same type of compassion and diligence with every micro decision, right? So if I know I'm building something amazing, if I can't relay what we're building effectively to a point where people understand it, then they'll never be as passionate, and that's why little mistakes get made. Like the true passion of what you're doing and the work you're doing is matters so much. I've had businesses ruined of my own because I couldn't convince people to buy into the mission. And we've since accomplished what I said we would from the beginning, but they didn't believe me. And so that's on me. I had to have done that better. But I can say that if you can get people to do that and there's more than one person and they're really aligned on that, like they will be successful because mistakes usually happen from not caring enough. Realistically, like,
True.
when they say, because when you're building something that compounds upon prior decisions, every decision is a high stakes decision, right? It's hard to relay that to someone because you don't want to put too much pressure on them. But when you're building a path and you're going down steps, one veer off makes you land in a completely different destination. Like, have you ever seen that with planes when they're like, if it's 1 degree off, seeing where you end up?
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? Over a
Yeah.
long trip. The same is true with building a business or a project. And so if anything, this makes me more bullish on Zcash because you'd think that person's going to be like obsessed with solving this problem.
100%. And to be clear, Daira Emma Hopwood has been responsible for co-designing Zcash, the Zcash shielded protocols, and the Halo 2 proof system.
Halo 2.
Also, yeah, it's some sort of a proof system.
Okay.
um,
I got excited. I love that game.
yeah, that would be wild for sure. Um, and also the lead author of the Zcash protocol specification and a co-designer of SPHINCS Sphinx post quantum signature scheme. So
Mm.
like this is someone who like Tim Berners-Lee level of like contributing to the space, and Tim Berners-Lee is like one of the founders of the internet, uh,
Wow.
fundamental computer scientist, and just want to be super clear about that. I wanted to make sure we highlight the actual accomplishments of this person.
Totally.
Now, what was I going to say? I kind of dropped what I was going to say, but I will
You're
keep
good.
thinking.
I got one here. So Bud had a great question. Did you hear about Midnight from the Cardano team? Absolutely, I have. We talked about it on the show a few times. I'm pretty sure they're focused on privacy as well. I think we can trust Charles. Yeah, again, we're taking a bet with anything. I think we can. And I also think that project's going to do really, really well. One thing I'll show you on that is that it's pretty ballsy to make a price prediction about your own project when you are notoriously getting roasted online by bots or otherwise. And Charles came out and said this, where one of the biggest meme accounts in the Cardano community said, like, what's the price prediction we hear? So this guy, I need your honest opinion. What do you think the night price will be at launch? And then he gave 4 different choices ranging from less than a penny to $1 plus. And then Charles comes in and says, I'll bet 50 cents.
Interesting.
That's crazy, dude. Because if it's not close to that, he's gonna get flamed. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty bold thing to say.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I can't tell the nature of where he's coming from with that comment because it could also just be him trolling a little bit.
Totally.
But um, but even to play around with that, I mean, I wouldn't do that.
I think Knight will be a top 50 project out of the gate.
And
I re
Night, oof, I'm always gonna have to do some live research with you guys because I don't
Yeah,
know
go for it.
exactly what it's about. Because oh wait, because it was like a from the web services level, from the cloud level, right? Is what they're
Mhm.
doing.
So I'll take you to their website.
Yeah.
Um, or why don't I say, what is Knight trying to achieve?
And
So
and
what Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and like in the meantime, like the major thing, please remember what you were gonna say. Um, in the mainstream uh privacy discussion, you have Monero and Zcash. And like my thing that I always talk about is okay, guys, we're talking about a transaction layer level of privacy, which is great. It's fantastic. But that's so far up the internet value, like the internet value chain, that like there's other places where you need to make sure that you actually have privacy. And I'm pretty sure that Night is about kind of getting another layer back, which is like the actual cloud services, I believe, which are a major part of how we're actually getting access to a lot of these different blockchains and whatnot, anyways. So let me back up and see what you got for me.
Totally. So I asked ChatGPT for an explanation because I'm sure they would make it more concise than I would. I'd be rambling. So I'll go through and read this with you. But from a bigger picture perspective, this is very connected to Zcash. Why we're talking about it is because it's a very similar type solution. And so when you think about this, if they were able to achieve the privacy element of this and do this right, that makes Cardano so viable for so many more problems. And so then when you think about how that impacts the ecosystem at large, that this achieves so many of the things they're trying to achieve, and also shuts up a lot of the people who really dog on Cardano, right? Because they always say you can't build anything on it that will have success. Like you can't be used for anything. There's no one there. This can solve a lot of those things because how they marketed this, again, I'm going to repeat this, that if you hold, I think it was XRP, Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, maybe one or two other projects where if you hold some of that asset, you get Midnight for free. You can just go claim it. And so now all those people, to do it, they have to create a Cardano wallet. And so they're making a ton of people come to the ecosystem and solving a major fundamental problem that would make the whole Cardano ecosystem far better used for a lot of problems. So here's a breakdown of the Midnight project, and it's token Night. So Midnight is the project, Night is the token. So when it releases, Night is what you'll see on CoinMarketCap. So what is CoinMarketCap trying to, sorry, what is Midnight trying to achieve? Privacy by default, or rational privacy on blockchain. One of the core aims is giving users control over what gets exposed on chain rather than making everything transparent, as with many public blockchains. So Midnight states not everything should be visible. Yeah, so obviously a partner sidechain with Cardano. So Midnight is designed as a blockchain network that interoperates with Cardano and potentially leverages Cardano's ecosystem aspects. Some key points: Midnight tokens are initially minted as a native asset on Cardano. That's so massive because when this project goes crazy, it's not just Cardano that's carrying this dead ecosystem. If there's a project that's actually a Cardano native token that is really economically successful in terms of price and perception, that does a lot for changing how people see Cardano, in my opinion. And that's why they've made this the major project for the past year or so. Midnight is described as a side chain or a partner chain in some community posts, though it maintains its own network and consensus. For example, Midnight is an L1 connected to Cardano. That's an important distinction. Midnight validators are sourced from existing Cardano SPOs. What else is important here? A dual token model for separating utility and privacy. Night is the utility or governance token, unshielded, freely transferable, and Dust, the token or resource used for paying fees and executing shielded/private transactions. It is not freely transferable to avoid being treated like a privacy coin, which regulators often scrutinize. So that's another point too, right? They're thinking about the long-term application of this to be adopted in as many places as it can be. And then this is just talking about how they marketed it. Do you think it's worth going through
No,
this?
I think that's good. And to be clear, I definitely overshot. All right, so let me backpedal a little bit. It's not just about like Amazon Web Services or anything like that. That's not what it's about at all. So let me backpedal on that. But very interesting concept here. And like another thing that we've always talked about, and the entire point of Cardano has been slow, methodical. What's everyone else doing? Let's not make those mistakes, and let's find ways to iterate on that technology and do it right. Right. So it'll be very interesting to see where this sits relative to something like Zcash. The one thing that I would want to point out and start to dive into a little bit is like, what is a zero knowledge proof? Because I kind of skipped over that earlier.
Yeah, that's really important to explain.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like it is the fundamental kind of aspect of all of these privacy preserving technologies that at least have some level of compliance. And so I found this article from this guy, Darlington Nam, and it's just kind of a brief breakdown of like what zero knowledge proofs are. And I just kind of wanted to pull up this graphic at the very least.
Please.
So essentially, you have a system where you're trying to figure out that something is true without knowing what it is. Right. So it's like if I was like, Ben, like I know your secrets, and you're like, no, you don't. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And you're like, okay, well, prove it. And so I'm like, okay, but if I tell you, then I have to there's other people in the room. So if I tell you, then everyone's going to know. So I have to have a way to prove to you that I know something without revealing the information. And that is what a zero knowledge proof helps to do, using math. So he gives a couple of examples of like what this actually looks like. And then he also defines like what qualifies a method as a zero knowledge proof. And so it has to have three major conditions in order for it to be considered a zero knowledge proof. Any system, right, that can accomplish what I just said is a zero knowledge proof technology. So the ones that we see on Zcash are called ZK snarks. Okay, and that stands for something super technical. But a zero knowledge proof has three major conditions. One of them is the completeness, which means that the condition simply means that if the prover is honest and not lying, then they should be able to totally convince the verifier that they're telling the truth. So there should be no ambiguity on whether or not I actually know your secret or not, Ben. That's condition number one. The second condition is the soundness, which means that if Bob was a cheat, if I was cheating, then I should never be able to deceive you into believing that I actually do know, or that I cheated in some way. Now, into believing that I don't know. There should be no way for you to be like, I don't know if you really know or not. It should be obvious. And then zero knowledge, this condition simply means that Bob should be able to totally convince Alice that he knows the location without revealing it. Cool. So hopefully that made some sense of like, what is zero knowledge proof in the first place? Did we explain that okay, you think?
Yeah, it made sense to me, but it's most important that people in the chat understand. So if you ever don't understand something, feel free to pose the question. There's no such thing as, okay, I'll take that back. There's almost no such thing as a dumb question. But like for the most part, like if you have the question, someone else probably does too. And so if you feel comfortable asking it, go ahead and throw it up there. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, explain how a zero knowledge proof works to me like I'm 12 years old.
Fire.
And then the example that they gave was this. Imagine this. You and I are in a cave. There's a secret door in the middle of the cave that only opens if you know a secret password. You want to prove to me that you know the password, but you don't want to tell me what the password is. That's exactly what a zero knowledge proof is. It's almost exactly the same example that you gave. Your example is better, honestly. You're better than ChatGPT. And then the magic part. So after enough tries, in real life with blockchains. Okay, the password is replaced by your private transaction details, like who sent how much money to whom. The system uses complex math, like Keith already said, elliptic curves, cryptographic hashes, etc., to prove that the transaction is valid. The sender has the money. No money was created out of thin air. all without revealing the actual details to anyone. That's a very, very big deal because there's a lot of transactions where you don't want people to know like how much money you have, right? Like all these things that can really potentially be unsafe even if people know how much money you have. We've talked about this before too, where
Mhm.
how like there's a lot of issues with people who have crypto assets who like get things happen to them negatively, right? Because people know what they have. And so
Mhm.
it can be very scary if people know that you're sitting on a lot of assets.
Now, here's my favorite part about this. This technology, my prediction, talk to me in 5, 10 years.
Mhm.
This is going to be such a fundamental piece of the internet as we
Totally.
move forward here.
Especially with AI.
Exactly. Exactly. With AI, with this idea, sorry guys, with decentralized and digital identities, okay, we're going to have this technology as a fundamental piece of the way that we interact with the internet. Because not only for the transactions and the financial value, but also for your biometric data, okay, your thumb, okay, it's going into the system. You're going into the cloud. I'm sorry, but you're going to be in the cloud. Your eyeball is going to be scanned. All right. So, with all of that stuff existing in these systems, we're going to have a way to verify information without revealing it. And that is what these zero knowledge proofs can allow for. And one of my favorite projects that, oh man, this guy, he was an OG in the game. He taught me about, it's called Deco. And what Deco is actually using a zero knowledge proof on the transcription layer, transport layer, excuse me, of the internet. So what that means is that when you are on the internet and you are um, interacting with a website, there is a communication that's happening back and forth between your computer and that website or that server on that site, right? And a part of that process is what's called the transport layer of the internet. Okay, so and Ken, you can come in here and correct me if I say anything wrong. And the idea here is if you could have a zero knowledge proof that gets in between the actual transport layer of the internet. Let me just pull this up real quick.
Go for it.
Um, I'm going to pull up the TCP IP model of the internet. Okay. And I want a better graphic
It's
here.
crazy how much we use this technology every day and people don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes or like the layers of things that are communicating in real time. Like it's pretty insane.
It's fascinating. And the only way you start to care is if you start really giving a crap about stuff like this,
Yes.
about blockchain and crypto. And like I would have never cared otherwise. So there's two major like ways of looking at how the internet works. There's the OSI model and then there's the TCP IP model. We're going to look at the TCP IP model on the right just because it's a little bit easier. Now, you have the network access layer, which is essentially like your AT&T. Okay, and then you have the network layer itself, which is kind of like your modem inside of your house. Okay, so not like the physical cables and wires, but just like how that data is getting into your system, into your life, which is through a modem. And then you have the transport layer, which is where data goes from your Wi Fi connection out into the rest of the world. And so, in that, and correct me again if there's anything I'm saying wrong, in that, right, if you could have a zero knowledge proof solution that exists at that layer of the internet, then that would mean that basically anything that's happening in your house or in your connection with AT&T can now be uh you can now prove any of the information about that without revealing the information at all. So your location, what your IP address, obviously, um, anything that is like your personal data, essentially, it's not really leaving your bubble anymore. Okay, and so Deco is a solution that was coming about in essentially like uh, early 2019-ish maybe, where some scientists at Chainlink were coming up with a way to actually do that. And that's what Deco is all about. Deco is transcription layer. Let me just go ahead and pull it up here. Foundational TLS zero knowledge proof Oracle technology for authenticating and verifying web data in a privacy preserving manner. So let me see how to do this. So they said Deco Sandbox enables financial institutions and enterprises to quickly explore how to streamline user onboarding while maintaining data privacy and ensuring data provenance. Okay, so basically, you can get to a point to where you have oh, okay. To where you have these massive organizations like AT&T, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, all of them using these zero knowledge proof solutions to maintain privacy while still enabling, right, the future of these decentralized financial transactions all over the internet. Because that's going to be a critical thing, right? Like the data privacy laws. Obviously, all of the financial regulations is its own thing. But what we're actually going to eventually get to, and I'll shut up in just a second, is to where like it's not just about like tokenizing stocks and like tokenizing real estate. We're going to see the financialization of data. And when we get to that point, it's going to be really important that we maintain the privacy throughout that. And that's why you need zero knowledge proofs. Sorry.
Incredibly well said, and always feel free to go on those. It's always the best stuff. So that was awesome. And not many people have thought about how data is oil now. Like it is what regulates and transfers value. And that's why I think that there was such a disconnect from people understanding things on a fundamental level for why crypto is going to go so crazy, right? Is because it is integral for that future that is coming, right? And so now people are being forced to see the connection to things that they never thought of, like the dirty word NFT, right? There's so many more ways in which NFTs are going to be brought into their life where they didn't think about it, right? And then when that technology gets mass adopted, then all the other things that were NFTs before become a lot cooler because everyone's using them all the time. And it's why it's so important to know this stuff, at least a little bit, is because, like you said, Keith, this is going to happen either way, right? And so if you don't understand the ethical ways of doing it, like, you can't demand it, right? It's like so many people don't even understand how this stuff works. Like, there's no clue. Like, they don't even have a concept where this kind of stuff that you just explained is technically possible.
Mm-hmm,
When
mm-hmm.
you need enough people, because the politicians, most of them are never going to learn this. So the public needs to know enough to demand it, and that's not easy to do. But it's like we definitely need to do too. So a lot of chat here. So we'll go through some of these
Yeah,
in real time.
yeah,
Um, Deco.
yeah.
Daniel had a question here I want to touch. So just got on. What is the reason for the increase in price? The specifics is anyone's guess, but I think it's a lot of people waking up to the narrative of privacy being such a massive deal. And I think people are waking up to, oh, this is going to happen regardless. So who's the best at solving this problem? And so far, it seems like Zcash is one of the best, if not the best, at solving this. And so that's also why I think Midnight will do really well, is because people do follow narratives. Another thing that you've talked about before, Keith, is that the mainstream public hasn't had much of an opportunity to touch the whole AI boom, right? And so through something like this, you're kind of getting
Mm,
some indirect exposure to the growth of that ecosystem of AI. And so I think that's another thing that's driving it. They also have people like freaking Naval shilling it. So like that's gonna help. But
yeah,
that's so good. And then we
yeah.
got some more here.
If
Jay's
you
like everything in the world. Go ahead.
if you've got Naval shilling your product,
You're good to go.
you're good.
A bud said, Keith, can you explain that to me like I'm 12? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would this include smart contracts? Are you asking, would Zcash be able to facilitate smart contracts, or are you asking the stuff that Keith was talking about?
Yeah, I think she's talking deco. So explain it like I'm 12. When you're on the internet, you're constantly exposing like very critical information about yourself.
So
Uh,
much more than people realize.
like there's marketers who have softwares that can literally go out from when you visit their website, they can know your credit score, like just off of you visiting a domain.
And they often know
Um,
where you go next to, which is so hilarious. Like that's trackable too.
yeah,
In a lot of
yeah.
cases, I don't. In certain places, it's not legal to do that, but a lot of companies do,
Oh yeah.
regardless.
Like a lot of the stuff is not legal at all, but
Yes, but it's
they can
technically
do it.
feasible, so they do it because it's always a risk reward. And that's the negative element of capitalism here is like, right? People will do a cost benefit analysis, and if they think it can increase their bottom line enough, they'll do it.
100%. And like at a certain point, right? The smaller companies, how it works is like the smaller companies, they don't have anything to lose, right? So they're the ones who do
True.
it. and
Yeah.
like they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they eventually find like a compliant way to do whatever it is that they've been doing,
Mhm.
um, or get bought out by some other company who is able to do that, or they just try to stay under the radar and then end up getting sued. but um, but yeah, so it's these small companies that have like this crazy technology, and they'll sell it to marketers for mad cheap because it's usually not that expensive to do what they're doing. And so when you're on the internet and you're just visiting a web page and your credit score is just like getting released, it doesn't have to be
Not
like that.
chill. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So a TLS layer level of zero knowledge proof could mean that if you wanted to reveal that information, you actually could have the choice to. And someone said this in the comments as well, right? Like this is going to bring the power of data back into the hands of the user,
Which is
right? So
huge.
it's going to be massive. It's going to create a whole new economy,
It's the
right?
most
Because
important thing.
yes, and it's going to take a lot of power back from these big tech companies because right now, like I'm saying, they don't ask us for this information.
We have to
Um,
give it to them basically to use the service.
exactly. And so when we get to the point where you actually have the option to say, like, like technically, right? Because the problem is that there's no technical way for me to
Mhm.
say, yo, no, don't use my information. Like it's built into whatever device I'm using that information is being given away. So
Mhm.
when you have a protocol that will, from once again the internet service providers level, right? Like they can't do you like that anymore. Facebook can't do you like that when AT&T is saying, actually, no, like you can't take this data. If
Mhm.
you'd like it, here's the fee. We'll take our cut. By the way, AT&T is going to get their cut, right, for providing the service. But anyways, point was, you can prove information about who you are on the internet without having to give that information away, and that is why you need something like Deco. It helps to put the power back into the hands of the user rather than the corporation. Hopefully that
We
was
also need this stuff for how things are gonna change, like a digital ID that people are gonna have, like, that's probably like, some form of that's gonna be needed, and but my mind goes to, okay, well, with this kind of technology, you could theoretically keep a physical ID, but proof of the physical ID in something that is private, and then you're essentially achieving the same end goal of the digital ID without creating that digital ID. So I think a lot more things are gonna come into play where it's really, really important. Like, you guys here that are watching this stuff, you're actually some of the most important people on the planet because you're getting educated on this technology that's coming so rapidly that the mainstream public just doesn't understand. And so it's on us to try to educate. And if you know the people in your life, like you got to say it in ways that resonate with them, right? Like I know the levers that I can push on with people in my life based on what they care about and tell them stories with characters that they know and words that they understand. It's really important to do that. And so if you guys ever don't understand something too, we want to do that for you as well. So please just let us know. But I want to share this price chart of Zcash because you talked about this before, but the huge tank. But so
oh yeah.
the founder on the pod that I listened to, he explained why this happened. He said how they distributed Zcash from its inception was that it was on the open market and there was an incredibly limited supply. And so when people paid like $100 for a fraction of Zcash, it made the per Zcash price absurd, but it wasn't a true indication of where it was because the market cap was tiny because there was only like dozens of Zcash in circulation, period. And so that really sucks for them in terms of like optics because like this looks horrendous. Like this looks like you ruined so many people's lives here.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't know the full story either, but last time I was saying how that kind of price action can happen whenever you have a pre-sale of a token. Um, and did he say that wasn't a part of it? Was there no pre-sale or was there a pre-sale? Do you know? Let me
I
see.
believe that I don't think there was like a true pre-sale as most people would conduct it. And I think how they did it, he thought it was the best in terms of like the outcome that would lead to, but he didn't foresee that this would be a massive problem because he had early people who were supporters that were trying to buy amounts and they purposely bought it for a lot of money to try to be like supportive, which kind of screwed the price of what it looked like it was worth. Do you know what I'm
Fair.
saying? Yeah, so,
Yep.
like so people were like, "Oh, I really believe in this," and so they're like, "Yeah, I paid $100 for a fraction of this because I really wanted to, like, support you guys," kinda thing, and then just
Mhm.
totally screwed the price.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, and it's like in startups too, where um you might have a company that raises, and maybe this actually doesn't make sense, but like if you have a company that like some guy just had an idea, but he raises $1 million, and that $1 million, right, that's coming in from this investor, he says, "Oh, I only want 5% of your company for this $1 million," and now the kid has a $20 million valuation, but like he just has an idea. It's only on
Yes.
paper that it's worth that amount, and it's because you have one investor, right, who has now set the price of this
Totally.
company, right?
Yes, exactly, and there's so many variables there where that's probably not true market value. It might be someone you know or someone who's betting on the jockey, not the horse kinda thing, and that can then really skew the optics because of how we measure these things. So it's really important to go a few layers deep to see what actually happened. Is there anything else that we should talk about on Zcash in particular or privacy chains, shit like that?
I think that's good, man.
Okay. So what else do you wanna talk about today, Keith?
Today, we could talk a little bit about the news.
Yeah, hit me with it.
So yesterday or late last night, some of you were around for my live stream, and what we saw was that there was the release of this JPM coin, or JPM coin, yeah, that's what they're calling it, on base chain for my goodness, yeah, for on base chain. So base chain is the L2 that Coinbase has developed. And so for JP Morgan to release their token on base chain was actually a big surprise to everyone, because if they were ever going to release this JPM coin in any public sort of a way, you would have imagined that it would have been on Ethereum, right? All the institutions are supposedly building on Ethereum. And so to see this was like, whoa, wait a minute, like what's going on? Like, why would they release this on base? Now, what exactly is JPM coin? Because that's the other thing that's really important. JPM coin is actually not a stable coin. Okay, it's actually a tokenized deposit token. So JP Morgan's USD deposit token is now available only for institutional transfers on base. So essentially, what this is about is that banks are tokenizing their deposits. They're not necessarily creating stable coins. Like, that's a whole separate offering where you're giving something to the public. You've got to back it one to one with treasuries instead. But what we've got is banks who already, right, are super hyper leveraged. Okay, they're saying, oh, by the way, you can use this super hyper leveraged tokenized deposit that you have with us on a blockchain. We're going to tokenize that deposit and you can use it over there. So you're not getting any of the benefits that you get with a stablecoin in terms of having the ability to um, know that it's backed one to one by a treasury. But on the other hand, this deposit token is going to potentially have the ability for you to earn a yield on it in a more native way, right? The same way that if you leave your money in a bank account at Chase, they will pay you yield on that.
Mhm.
So what's happening with these tokenized deposits is, first off, JP Morgan has built out Connexus, which is their token. They have a tokenized collateral network inside of their own system. And so what they're pretty much going to be doing here, from what I understand, I did some reading on it, is that they're basically going to have one place where you can put all of your assets. It could be your stocks, your tokenized deposits, your money market funds, everything inside of JP Morgan, and use that as a unified account where you can then get leverage right off of these assets and use them in a distributed technology kind of a way. So with that, right, the yield that you can be earning on all of your assets could be getting paid on chain or in a programmatic manner, because
Mhm.
of these tokenized deposits that they've now offered on base chain in particular. And by the way, you can't buy these, you can't get your hands on them. It's only for the institutional clients.
Got it. Great explanation. Yeah, it's crazy to think about how crazy things can get when DeFi becomes a lot more accessible, right? And the rules are in place. And we've already mentioned so many times that Wall Street loves gambling. The general public has grown to love gambling out of necessity or being pushed towards it. And now there's gonna be so many more ways to make money on your money, and obviously with varying risk profiles. But some of it will be crazy returns that they've not been able to get through traditional finance TradFi means. And if that becomes as easy to access as these DeFi options, like that opens up a whole new wave of mass adoption.
Yes. And this is by far like a really important step in that direction, and especially for institutions now. For them to have this programmatic tokenized deposits, uh, we're starting to get to where, yeah, you can do some really cool stuff on chain. And to be fair, these institutions are going to be the first ones to probably benefit from this. And then
Mhm.
eventually they'll find ways to say, okay, we've tested this enough. We feel good about it and we've made a lot of money. Here you guys go. You can also use this kind of technology too.
And big banks are going to be foaming at the mouth to do this kind of stuff because they're going to be able to increase their profit per customer so much. Or sorry, profit per employee too. Like they're going to be able to increase their margins so much through adopting a lot of these technologies. So it's going to be everywhere and everywhere. Like you just won't even realize that it's DeFi or crypto. It'll just look at the same. It'll be in the same sort of app. That's the problem they're really solving right now. One question I wanted to bring up that's kind of adjacent to this is that, like, okay, so stablecoins. We talked about that. We've had full episodes on stablecoins. Why won't or will the banks just issue their own stablecoins rather than USDC and USDT? Like, why wouldn't they do that? And what impact would that have if and when they do?
Yeah. I mean, this right here is definitely an interesting move because it says that they might not. Um,
Okay.
and I definitely, so gosh, there's a tweet that I'm going to try to find real quick from Jack McDonald, um, who's the SVP of stablecoins at Ripple. And basically, like, I don't really believe that banks will release their own stablecoins. I think they're just going to white label them. Um, but also, there's this concept of like, will they just do tokenized deposit solutions instead?
Mm,
Because you got to think like banks are already pretty much offering the same thing, except they get way better terms than the stablecoin provider, right? In terms of like they get to leverage much, they get 10 to 1 leverage, right? Compared to the stablecoin provider. Now, is that a better offering for the user? Probably not, right? Like I
mm,
want to know that my stuff is backed 1 to 1. And what's eventually going to happen is that these stablecoin providers are also going to have to start to pay that yield out. Okay. Because let me back up for a second. Stablecoins. USDC or Circle is one of the bigger stablecoins. Circle, what they do is they take your dollar and then they go and they buy a treasury with that dollar. When they buy a US treasury with that dollar, they're going to earn a yield on that treasury. Okay. That's where all of their profits come from because you're giving them money and they're going and investing it for you, just like a bank would. Okay. But in this case, you're not expecting from Circle to get anything back in return. Whereas when you go to the bank, you're like, hey, at least give me some yield. And they don't give you anything, but give like on paper, tell me that you're giving me something. And so they will. And so, but the difference is that when I'm Circle, I have to back that deposit 1 to 1 with treasuries. Whereas if I'm the bank, you can have money at the bank and it's not backed by but 1/10 of what, what I'm saying, you've got deposited at that bank. And so this whole tokenized deposit thing is going to be around offering the functionality of a stable coin without having to pay out that yield per se, or
mm.
without having to get back to 1 to 1 backing. And so that's kind of what it wouldn't be surprising if they all did that.
Yeah.
So that's
Far
my
higher
take.
leverage. Yeah. And Akin said this question here for you, Keith.
Yes, Keith, did you come to the conclusion that the JPM only provides access to and use of assets within JPMorgan's ecosystem of investment vehicles? Right, right. And only for institutions as well for now. That was pretty much my conclusion.
Got it. And then Jay says they will not. I'm assuming that Jay's referring to banks issuing their own stable coins. And
Right.
yeah, that makes total sense. It seems like more of a win for them to not. Uh, yeah, it's. I think it's crazy how mainstream all this stuff is about to become very, very quickly. And I still think that Trump will do something to give people some stable coins to get them used to this whole thing. But we'll see. What other news did you have for us?
Yeah, and he's got his own stablecoin, which I only knew because of
That's crazy.
I only knew that because of Max at UNFTR. I actually didn't even know that. But yep. So the Wall Street regulator to consider crypto token classification. So basically, the SEC came out some point, I guess, this morning and said that the agency would consider establishing classification for digital assets to help determine when they can be considered securities. In the coming months, I anticipate that the commission will consider establishing a token taxonomy. Taxonomy is just classification anchored in legal reasoning that distinguishes securities from commodities, said SEC Chair Paul Atkins. Okay. Now, this will recognize that there are limiting principles to our laws and regulations, he added. So, when it comes to what's happening in like the legislature in the United States around this stuff, is that you've got the Clarity Act that's coming into play, but you've also got the SEC, who is the regulator. So, regulations exist basically on top of legislation. right? Like it's like a guardrail around legislation in case the legislation can't be specific enough to prevent certain types of things. My dude, peace out, Akin.
Later again. I was just giving you a piece up, hitting you with that deuce.
Yes,
Later,
sir,
buddy.
dude.
Have
We
a
will
good one.
see you.
Appreciate you. And do you have anything else, Keith?
Nah.
Okay. One other thing that's news that we should definitely talk about, we haven't done it on the show yet, is that the fact that the government shutdown is coming to an end. And but there's a lot of caveats to that. Like, it's temporary, and the motives behind it aren't the best for the people. It seems like the core issue was the flights, like the people flying, and that was causing an issue of uh, grave concern. And so they came to a temporary agreement that will just be picked up again in a few months, where they could be in the exact same situation that we were in before. But they did this essentially. What people are saying is because with holiday season coming up, there's going to be so many more people flying. If you don't have this stuff sorted, that could become a massive problem. And so it's on temporary agreement kind of thing. Do you have any more insight on that?
No, I mean, from what I understand, like the Senate passed something, um, but I don't know that the House has passed it or the president has either. Okay, so yeah, the House is expected to vote today on ending the government shutdown.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, it was that, and then the SNAP benefits and like all this other stuff. And what Trump came out and said was, he said something rather about the air stuff. Uh, he was like considering giving air traffic controllers a bonus. Is the headline that I saw. I don't know what he actually said, and I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of funny. Because that will incentivize them to stay just in case they get a bonus, even if he doesn't deliver on that.
Totally. That's very true. Jay's got a good one here.
Yeah. Government shutdown going to end when ISO 20022 starts in 10 days. Will we get ETF before then? Does it matter that ISO 20022 starts and no clarity yet? Doesn't Clarity Act have to pass before ISO 20022? Okay. ISO 20022. I'm one of the detractors. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now. It is a payments standard. It's a payments schematic. It does not inherently mean anything. Plus, I haven't been keeping up with the deadlines because Jay, like these deadlines have been getting pushed back since like 2018, if
Oh
not
my
even
lord.
before then. So like it's always about to come into place. um, so I don't know. I haven't been keeping up. Maybe there was like finally they were like for real this time, right? Because at some point it is going to be for real. But I'm just it's like the guy who
But
cried
when?
wolf or whatever. And anyways, and even if right ISO 2002 standards are in place, I literally just did this with inside of my community. Um, or I was talking to someone specifically, like just because a standard is standardized doesn't mean that it's going to be like utilized, and especially in the way that everyone in like the XRP community in the ISO 20022 token community is expecting. Like just because like I have a road that's been carved out and paved doesn't mean first off that I'm going to use that road. I might take a different route, right? Like I can take whatever route I want, and that's literally whatever payment system that you're going to use. That just happens to fit the schematic of the fact that there's like you drive on the right side of the road, and you drive on the and you have other people on the other side of the road, right? Like just because there's rules and standards in place doesn't mean that they're going to be used for crypto tokens. Like the whole point of the standardization is that you can use whatever you want. That's what standardization means.
Hmm.
So, um, but to also answer the other spirit of the question, not to be overly detracting from what you're saying. Yes, you need the Clarity Act. You do need that before you're actually getting any sort of mass scale adoption of these technologies in the way that you're expecting them to be used. I say you, me
Yes.
too. Me too.
The Clarity Act is so big because, much like the word suggests, the clarity allows people to move, make bigger long-term decisions, and get invested into something. And that's why Charles Hoskinson, he has said on multiple interviews that once that gets passed, the floodgates will be opened, and there'll be, as he says it, a Giga Chad bull run. so so he's definitely bullish and very optimistic. So I'm hopeful for the same, and I do think that'll get done. The guy from Brian Armstrong, that's Coinbase guy, right? He's been coming out quite a bit publicly because he's very involved in the legislation, and they continue to say they're very close. I even think that Charles made a tweet recently about how close they are to getting things finalized, which is a big deal. So yeah, this stuff changes the paradigm of what crypto is, like to its core, and that's something that like you gotta it has to be done, whether however you see crypto, however you see Bitcoin, whatever, like it's stuff that had to be done. And the fact that we're close to it, when we were watching content, say like last cycle, like this kinds of news or these kinds of things happening, or even conversations taking place between crypto people and legislators, this would have been like people would have been losing their mind. We've just become so numb to all the bullish things that are happening because there actually is so much. So I think that fundamentals and price have not caught up to narrative yet, because the narrative isn't even something that people fully understand for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, plus, dude, we're beat up. Like, let's be
Yeah,
honest.
we are super torched.
Like even the price rallies have just been absolutely faded for the past 2 years. Like
Yeah.
almost. Like we got a run up in Bitcoin, but everything else, dude, had a nice run up last year, December. Now it's been a whole year,
Yeah, December was good.
and like just every rally gets faded. Every rally gets faded. Zcash is the only guy in the room that's up right now.
That's climbing for sure. But it's pretty important to look at the Bitcoin price chart here. Like
Yeah, to be
people,
fair.
we've experienced a lot of growth, and people forget that, right? Like only I guess that's 2024, but in 2024 the price was 40 grand and we're sitting at 101K. Like I think that recency bias sets in too much, and they don't realize how crazy this really is on a
Yeah,
percentage basis for an asset this large.
yeah.
And it would have gone even crazier, but a lot of OGs have started to sell their Bitcoin because they can sell it and not tank the price. And so they've
Mm,
been doing that
mm.
very consistently, which has maintained this kind of equilibrium of price that we've come to base as the new normal. But these things can move, and they can move pretty quickly. And of course, with an asset as large as Bitcoin, are you going to experience those crazy gains? No, but it's important to understand that the money flows and it starts with Bitcoin, right? So a lot of people ask like, okay, well, why haven't we had an altcoin season yet? Well, a big part of that is a number that people don't talk about enough, which is like the Bitcoin dominance numbers, right? Like,
Mhm.
so Bitcoin dominance basically speaks to how much of the overall crypto market is Bitcoin itself. And right now, Bitcoin dominance is at a level that is just like so high, but it actually needs to go up, meaning Bitcoin is running, and then the money spills over into everything underneath. And a lot of these projects are actually doing amazing things. And there's the it's so coiled, they're like a spring ready to shoot, that not a lot of liquidity needs to come into these spaces for these to run very, very quickly. So
Mhm.
when you have that coming into play with all these rules and stuff, and then also the global liquidity situation in terms of money that's in the system is going to change pretty radically over the next 12 months. There's going to be a huge injection of cash, and that is massive for these kinds of assets. So for all you people who are sad and crying, I'm with you. I've cried a lot too, but I do think that better days are ahead of us here in a very big way, and it pays to have conviction. It pays to believe in something when no one else does, and that actually pays the most, ironically, right? And so if you just factor that into the cost of the gains that can possibly happen, like I would actually say a lot of people have given up on crypto. I think it's the best time to double down on crypto in terms of your research, your education, because this is where everything's on sale. Like it's so dumb that if you went to the Apple store and I told you that iPhones are 75% off, you would be losing your mind and buying every iPhone. There are iPhones all over the place. There's so many
Yep.
iPhones in here that are like pennies in the dollar that you just got to go learn about.
Yes, sir, dude. You spelled it out. This is exactly how the markets move. And the thing that I've found the most fascinating about this particular bull market is like I don't think like most people who are even veterans at this point like have been like I'm out, dude. Like
That's such a
most
good
people can't do this. They can't.
that's such a good point you brought up, Keith. Thank you, because remember when I said yesterday or 2 days ago, I was like, I'm more bullish on this than ever. The real reason why I was so bullish is because they even broke Gary V's spirit. I was like, okay, I think things are going to be good here because he's a perma bull. He's like overly positive all the time, especially about NFTs and crypto. And I heard him on a podcast, one of the first times he's publicly talked about his whole NFT project in quite a while. And he was like, he was down. So I'm like, okay, they've really kicked our ass here, a lot of us. And so eventually that's when that's usually a bottom signal.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I mean, the only other thing about it that can be bad is like, and it's a part of why for the past year we've seen Bitcoin go up and hit like 120 and then come back down. It hits 120 and then it comes right back down.
Yeah.
And it's because people are like, I'm done. I'm done. And as soon as you get rid of all, like, as soon as the only people that are left in this market are the ones who aren't going to capitulate no matter what,
Mhm.
that's when you're going to get this massive price runs of everything because no one's going to be willing to sell.
And I think most of the people that are still here, they do have diamond hands at this point.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
we we couldn't have taken many more hits here. Do you know what I mean? Like we've been bodied and we're still here holding. Like the people who
I've
are holding
never
now aren't going to
experienced
sell.
this.
No, this is crazy. And that's why I look at my portfolio and I don't even feel anything when I look at it, even though it's down so much, because I understand that in the grand scheme of things, these prices are irrelevant. You don't lose something unless you sell it, right? You don't lose on a trade until you actually finalize it and make it live. So I still am holding stuff that people think I am absolutely absurd to be holding. And I think that they will age quite well. And I think we're going to have some fun streams here where all of us are doing okay in the next like 6-ish months or so. And so I'm excited to celebrate all of that with you guys.
We're
Uh,
gonna have the homies
BT
in here going
going
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, I hope everyone in here gets absurdly wealthy and does great things with it. But we got Jay here saying BTC is a beta test coin. That's something that you said a lot, Keith, right? Is the fact that this was really the test.
Yeah, and before people were saying that, this is how I was always looking at it.
Mhm.
It just simply is a primitive version of what you can do with distributed ledgers. Now, I wanted to come back to something that I was bringing up earlier with Jack McDonald, the SVP of stablecoins at Ripple, also the CEO of a company called Standard Custody. Speaking on like what are, I'll link it this way. Uh, Use cases of technology. You can't, there's no stablecoins on Bitcoin. I'm sorry, but there's just not. Maybe there will be one day, but there's not right now. So let's
Mhm.
talk about what Jack McDonald, the SVP of stablecoins at Ripple, had to say about banks and whether or not they would actually issue their own stablecoin. So
Cool.
he said, with the signing of the Genius Act, we're seeing more consumer companies, retailers, platforms, and tech firms explore whether they need their own stablecoin. But let's be clear, launching a stablecoin isn't like launching a new app. It's infrastructure, and getting it wrong has real consequences.
That's what you said.
A stablecoin isn't a product extension or a brand feature. It's financial infrastructure and it comes with deep responsibilities, compliance, liquidity, interoperability, and trust. Now, what are most of these companies hoping for? They're trying to avoid credit card swipe fees, faster settlement and fewer intermediaries, loyalty tie-ins or closed loop spend, right? So think about like Venmo, okay, having the
Mhm.
ability to have their own stablecoin, potential new revenue from interest on reserves. Because if you park your money there, right, then they can go out and they can go buy treasuries and start earning on that money and not paying you anything. So he said these are valid business goals, but only part of the picture. The problem, most of these models are built for limited single ecosystem use or are walled gardens, useful only within one brand, not interoperable, not liquid, not programmable. We need less of this fragmentation in global finance, not more. And that's where branded stablecoins fall short. So Venmo has a stablecoin, PayPal has a stablecoin, Zelle has a stablecoin. It's like, okay, well, we're not really solving anything because everybody just got their own freaking stablecoin.
Yeah.
So limited liquidity outside the brand, complex integrations with external systems, because now you got to connect everything again. No incentive for third party adoption because they're built for a single use case. Somebody pointed out on my videos, okay, well, who's going to use JPMorgan's tokenized deposits? Well, technically, it's only for anyone who's in their own ecosystem. No one else is going to use it or want to use it. So, minimal utility for consumers or enterprises. Now, there's also the trust factor. If you're issuing a stablecoin, you need clear auditable reserves. You need regulatory alignment. You need enterprise grade risk management. That's not a marketing project. That's serious financial infrastructure. While the US has deep financial infrastructure, many global markets don't. Stablecoins can unlock USD access, speed, and inclusion where legacy systems fall short. That's where the need is most urgent and where the opportunity is the greatest. Bottom line, stablecoins aren't just a payment shortcut or a brand feature. They're a foundational layer of modern financial infrastructure and they need to be built accordingly. At Ripple, we're doing just that. So,
Love
point
that,
being,
man.
point being, he very well said. And he said this at a very timely time. It was like right when the Genius Act got passed. Point here is these banks can do all that, but it's not gonna solve any real problems. The tokenized deposit thing solves a problem. It offers a unique offering to their clients, so they can get deposits from other banks, but eventually, like everyone's gonna be racing to zero, right? As far as like you're gonna have to pay out more and more and more. Okay,
Mm.
so that yield, that spread, right, is gonna get they're gonna offer more and more and more of it, and these stablecoin providers can offer unlimited amounts of that yield. The bank can't do that. They've got a lot of infrastructure. So if you want to compete with a stablecoin, then you're gonna lose. So
No, that's a
that's
great
really what it
point.
comes down to.
Yeah, and that's also from, like, the memes or psychology part of it too. What is the most important thing to a bank? It's the reputation and trust that they have with people, because the money is something that people safeguard more than anything, right? And so if you take a risk, the degree of risk for a bank is so much higher in trying new things than, say, something like Facebook, right? Like, Facebook can take swings all the time, and they do, and they lose because they're allowed to. They have that expectation. A bank doesn't really operate like that. And so if you enter a world that you don't fully understand and you screw up, the consequences can be catastrophic to a bank. We got some great comments in here. So Chad says, BTC is the only thing I trust. Altcoin positions are just a gamble, and I treat them that way. This is a great topic.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair, but I'm definitely an altcoin bull because I believe technology is undefeated. And I don't think that Bitcoin gets us to where we want to go. And I don't think Bitcoin was ever supposed to get us where we're supposed to go. I think it was the Trojan horse, or the thing to get people to talk about this, like you talked about, the sneezing tool from a marketing term. And so I think that's it. Like, if you really, I think the more you understand, the more bullish you become on alts. And I totally get what you're saying, Jay, or Chad, sorry, in terms of it is absolutely a gamble, but I think it's an asymmetric one, where if you win so crazy because you're betting on the infrastructure of the future of finance. Right? When you think about it like that, and you do all the things we've talked about in many conversations, where you look into who is involved, who are their partners, how long have they been doing this, what have they achieved, then you start to see, like, wow, I'm betting on something that is so huge. Like, imagine if you could bet on fractional ownership, and obviously that's a very layman's way of saying this, of the underlining infrastructure of, say, the internet.
Right.
Right? Like, how much money would that be worth if that was technically feasible to invest into? It'd be
Mhm.
absurd. But I don't think enough people really realize that that's kind of the same kind of shift that is taking place.
Yeah, and I mean, like, so Chad, I think the primary like Bitcoin maximal, and I'm not necessarily calling you a Bitcoin maximalist, but it sounds like you're a Bitcoin maximalist. Um, the primary thing is like what the intelligent take is that technology might be valid, but does the token of that technology that we're talking about being any altcoin, does that actually hold value? Becomes
Mm,
the question. And that's what Bitcoin does
great point.
very well. Is like, okay, I truly believe that this token, as the Bitcoin output of the mining process through proof of work, has value. So,
Totally.
so from that perspective, I do get that. I think that there's so many altcoins, and none of them have done the type of work that it actually takes to get that part right. If they're not going to use proof of work, right? So, and I say none of them. I mean, it's less than 1% of them have actually done that work.
Totally. And it also, to do a lot of what these altcoins are trying to achieve, they do need a lot of the legislation that we've talked about to be put through to get to the means of use of different people using it, and all that stuff. So, Chad, your point here is, like, very good. And I would say that if you have money and you're in the game of preservation of that money, then Bitcoin should be probably the only thing you're touching realistically, unless you'd like to take on some risk. But for most people who are watching this show, I'm sure you're in a different situation where you're taking some risk out of necessity. And I don't think there's a better asymmetric asset class than altcoins, in my opinion, right? There's also Jay that says it's all a ruse to bring in the new digital economy, selling DeFi to the world while passing all the rules in the background. Yeah, it certainly seems like Bitcoin was a very effective marketing campaign. Do you think this is a good question by RD here? Do you think that stablecoins are currently taking Bitcoin's spot? I'm assuming you mean in terms of its practical use case, and a lot of people are using stablecoins for what a lot of people predicted people would use Bitcoin for. One of the biggest public ones being Kathy Wood from ARK. Like, because she throws out crazy predictions for everything all the time, and so I'm sure people are kind of numb to her predictions. I think she's awesome and very smart, but a lot of the predictions are just crazy, and so she's justifying her lack of accurate Bitcoin prediction because of the fact that she's saying a lot less people are using Bitcoin for what she thought they would, and they're using
Mm,
stable coins for that instead, and that's
mm.
dictating the price a lot, is what she was saying.
Well,
Because
that's
go ahead.
you thought Bitcoin was going to be used for international transfers? I mean, come on,
That
like
Yeah, when
no.
she said that, I was like, what? Because if anybody even spends 2 seconds to research Bitcoin, its price trajectory, all these different things, why would you sell and use to buy goods a appreciating asset, or
Exactly.
send money to your family? Like, it doesn't really make sense for that use case. It makes total sense to for the sake of acquiring things. Of Stablecoin is a far better vehicle to do
Mhm.
that. And also, I think she grossly underestimated the mainstream's opinions on things. It's a lot
Mm,
easier for people to get to a place of understanding that I'm sending a digital dollar. That's no different than sending an
Venmo.
e-transfer, say, as here
Yeah.
in Canada, or Venmo, like you guys have. We don't have Venmo in Canada,
You
which is
guys don't
screwed.
have Venmo?
Buddy, we have nothing here.
Bro, what is going on
Yeah.
in Canada?
So that's actually, so I will say this. I'll give credit where credit is due. I try to be as objective as possible. Canada's banking system is one of the safest in the world, but with
Okay.
all those regulations and restrictions, we don't get a lot of innovation in the space, because like every other major industry in Canada, we live in oligopoly land. There's like 3 or 4
Mm,
players in every industry. They price fix. They dictate what everything costs. So, and that's the craziest thing about Canada. Not to go on a huge rant here, but like people who always say, oh, like they hate America because of these big companies. I'm like, are you stupid? Big companies run our entire country. Like, what are you
mm,
talking about? There's
mm.
like 5 banks that are in bed with the government. There's like these massive telecom companies. There's 3 of them. Like, there's no such thing as the free market in Canada. Why do you think every good entrepreneur leaves, man? And it's getting to a bad place where, like, to get out of our economic situation here in Canada, they need to promote a lot more entrepreneurship, and it's victimized here because you can't win, man. You look at any of these problems that you'd want to solve, you're like, I'm selling to less people than the state of California here. And it's incredibly hard to grow a business. There's so much red tape. And even if I win, what's the best case scenario? I get acquired by one of those guys and nothing really changes.
So, do you guys have cars in Canada?
That's crazy. We actually, you know, Canada's awesome in so many ways. I just, the economic policy is not something I'm a massive fan of, and also there's so many things I'm not privy to in terms of how it got created and the decisions that get made. But there's a lot of wasteful spending, like in every government. But the business climate here is what really frustrates me the most, because there's so many amazing, talented people in Canada, and we push them away in like almost every sector because of how we approach the whole like finances standpoint. Like, if you're a beast at anything, you leave.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
if you're the best, you leave
Mhm.
our country.
Go to New
Like,
York.
obviously there's, yes, you go to New York, you go to Florida, you go to Texas, you go to, sometimes people go to Europe. And of course there are exceptions to this, obviously, but I've seen so many amazing people leave this country. It's horrible for our economy.
We got some crazy comments. We gotta respond to the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah, you pick them.
Underdog. Underdog said, thinking about selling a kidney to buy XRP and BTC.
That's funny.
Science is evolving, and Google says that they will be able to genetically modify kidneys in the
Motherfucker.
near future. Double up, baby. What you think?
Underdog, that is crazy, and I love it. Don't do that. But is Underdog the same person who was talking about gooning?
It might be.
Underdog is some fantastic comedic relief, so I appreciate that. But my advice, my professional advice, would say do not sell the kidney. I think tech may get to the point where you can do that, but I don't think the gamble is worth it, in my opinion.
Underdog's about to quit his job, sell his kidney, and buy XRP all in.
Bro, if that's not the leader of the XRP army, I don't know who is or who should be.
Yeah, we love the conviction though. It's definitely one of those times in the markets too where uh, you know, it's not the best time to do like crazy stuff. That's when you do that in the bear market. But but I can understand why someone would be like getting a little bit willing to put a little bit more risk on at the moment, especially with prices
Mhm.
not being totally elevated. So I hear you, man. But there's different kinds of risk in life, and we're talking about
Yeah,
financial risk over here.
totally. Yeah, so let's talk. So Zcash, why it's going up in price so much? I think it's largely like narrative driven in the time in which it's driven. I think narratives always move, especially altcoin seasons are usually driven by narratives, and the biggest percentage movers are typically riding certain narratives. What are the narratives that you're really paying attention to over like the next 12 months?
I've only got one.
Okay.
Interoperability every single time. That will never change for me. That's the only theme I care
Okay.
about.
Okay. So yeah, if you look into that, there's some pretty obvious decisions that you'll make in doing that. So definitely look into that. I think other ones will be AI related projects. I
Mhm.
think privacy will be a real one. And then the other narrative I'm keeping my eyes on is real world assets. I
Right.
think that those are the buzzwords of the next 12 months.
Mhm.
And if you can do the boring stuff to figure out, okay, in this world of buzz, what is the legitimate problem they're trying to solve and who could feasibly solve that problem. And also you can typically spot some very underserved areas, right? So like there's this one project on Cardano, and I'm not trying to like promote it at all, so I won't even say the name of it. But they're solving a big market problem with legitimately no other competition there,
Mm.
right? And so you can sometimes find that where no one's going after this problem for whatever reason. Like I've had that in business before. Like many times I've started a business because I was like, no one's touching this because it's probably not worth it for who could compete with me. And
Mm.
so I can come in and basically have a blue ocean for myself. There's a lot of blue oceans that are being created right now because of everything being going on chain and a tokenization of everything.
Facts. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, like, all right, fine. So my thesis was always that this bull run was going to be AI tokens, and eventually you could see that RWAs was going to be a thing. The next bull run, I think, will be the interoperability bull run. And I think when you
You're
get
saying
that,
4 years from now?
yeah, yeah,
Really?
yeah, I think it's like a whole new, like, because we gotta like tokenize everything, and you know, JPMorgan tokenized deposits, and everybody's got to create their own stuff again just to realize that, like, oh, this doesn't work. Like, we need to connect it all.
Hmm.
Okay, but the infrastructure is there now for us to connect it. So that's what I think we're just too early in that regard, and that's why everybody's like XRP to $100 just now. Oh my god, like we got some infrastructure to build out first. Like people need to do the wrong thing, or at least like get set up for that first.
That's I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll show the XRP chart so y'all can look at it. But in terms of narratives, XRP has had a story that I think people can understand, right? Like I honestly think one of the biggest reasons for why the top 5 are the top 5 is because of, or I guess exclude Tether, but it's because there are concepts that people can understand,
Wow.
right? There's so many other things underneath that are solving crazy problems, but the layer of complexity dictates the level of mass, like a conviction, right?
Hmm.
Like if people can't understand something, they can't think it's a big deal. Because how could you? You can't have the feeling state behind the belief. And so there's a lot of projects here that I think are dramatically undervalued. And as soon as things get passed, they will probably skyrocket and get repriced because the market is like, oh wow, this is here the whole time. A lot of people are sleeping on stuff because it's not cool right now. People love to chase pumps in all different asset classes. And this has been not very pumpy for a long period of time. And that's usually the best time to accumulate. Yeah, underdog made a decision. This is good. Yeah, maybe I'll wait on that for now. Good call, buddy. I think that's the right move, my dude. I saw your Daniel said, "I saw your stream about JPMorgan." Yeah,
What you
welcome,
think?
welcome. I'm glad you saw that. Yeah, what'd you think, Daniel? What'd you think? Is there any projects that you wanna dive into in particular on this stream? Anything else that piques your attention?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Is there anything else that you wanna chop it up on today? We'll put it up to the chat, I guess. Do y'all have any questions or anything that you want us to talk it up on? Or Keith, do you have anything?
Nah, man. I'm just enjoying life. Super happy. That's all.
Me too, dude. Life's pretty chill. It's important to remember as crazy as everything seems, it's important to go outside, touch grass, like hang out with your friends, say silly shit, laugh a lot. You know what I mean? Like we were all too serious too often sometimes. And although things are a big deal, it doesn't have to ruin every moment. How do you stay BT? Oh, you want to take that?
What's crazy is that if I told you what I did know, um, I'd be shooting myself in the foot because these guys didn't pay me for that.
Oh,
Um, but I will say there is a project that is out there that is creating DeFi on Bitcoin,
Mhm.
uh, and they're starting to get some traction. I'll tell you who did get paid to talk about it, and from there we can, you can figure it out. This guy's name is, give me just a second. His name is uh sorry about that. His name is Matthew Perry. Okay, Matthew
Matthew
Perry got
Perry.
paid to talk about this.
Isn't that a famous, like, celebrity? Matthew Perry? That's the guy who
It
died away
sounds
who
like it.
died from Friends, right?
I don't know,
Or is that
maybe that's his name, but this is
no,
the
I'm tripping. That's definitely not him.
go check out Matthew Perry. He's cool.
Matthew Perry. Uh, so, Bud, great question here in terms of I wanna put it back on the screen. So, st staking BTC, why is that such a big deal to be able to do more with the BTC that you hold, the Bitcoin that you hold? Because look how much money is in Bitcoin right now, right? Like, the market cap is 4x, more than 4x the next closest project. Like, it is carrying so much of the money within this space.
Yep.
And so if you give the average person the opportunity to hold this asset, which is already appreciating at a crazy clip, and then they can also do DeFi activities with it, like that's absurd. So I'll bring it back to Cardano, right? Where Cardano has a lot of people trying to solve that problem too. There's a lot of projects that are trying to solve that. Like there's Bitcoin OS is one of the biggest ones that's done a lot of talking. I haven't seen much of the follow through yet because I think it's behind closed doors. But there's a lot of people that are trying to solve that to basically make Cardano the DeFi layer for Bitcoin. Because if you saw our Cardano episode, they're built in the same underlying technology of UTXO. I believe Cardano is extended UTXO, but it allows them to basically be the perfect layer 2 or DeFi layer for Bitcoin, which is huge if they can even capture some of this money, right? Like it's so much money that comes into the Cardano ecosystem if they become one of the main ways or the main way to conduct DeFi with Bitcoin.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things right now. It's like we're just super early and stuff's clunky in that regard. Um,
There's so many people competing right now, right? So
yeah.
it's not fully been set. Will we get to that place? I think so, and
Mhm,
probably pretty quickly.
mhm.
It's just a matter of it's something that is being like it's being pioneered in many ways, and so with that, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be people that win and lose. It's like a race of any kind, and so I think you're looking in the right direction. I would say try to see the people who are solving it and see how you can get involved.
100%, man. What else you got
Sweet,
for us,
brother.
chat?
Yeah, chat, don't be shy here. It's very important that you guys ask whatever you want so that we can make this the best pod in the world. We got a guest coming on next Tuesday.
Ooh,
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it'll be good. He's a cool guy. Very cool dude. I won't say who it is because you got to show up to see that, but he's very involved in the crypto Bitcoin space. So he'll have a lot of knowledge, a lot of things to share. And he also talks to some of the most influential and interesting people on a near weekly basis. So a lot of
Okay.
different things that he can provide to the conversation.
I feel like I'm like solving a riddle right now.
Yeah, so if you
Who's
want
the
to solve the
next
riddle,
guest?
you got to come back Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST is when we go live every week, Tuesday and Thursday. But I know this is Wednesday, but it's because I'll be gone. But in the chat, don't be shy. Do you have anything else that you all want us to chop it up on? Also, if you're watching this via the recording after we stopped being live, we appreciate you for watching. We love you, but we would love you 10 times more if you showed up live. And the best way to do that is to click the subscribe button and then make sure to turn on notifications. Make sure it's all notifications because the only ones that you will ever receive will be for live streams. So you don't get spam with clips and all that stuff. We've separated that stuff to make the subscription and the notification bell actually mean something. So if you've yet to do that, do that. We love having you here. It makes it so much more fun. We love to see what's his name again? The legend here. Underdog. Like Underdog, definitely keep showing up, man. And keep us up to date with your kidneys and all that stuff.
Yeah, man. Keep us up to date with the kidneys, and I'm pretty sure what you don't just don't quit your job.
Yeah. Just don't quit your job. Quit the gooning. Don't quit your job.
Yeah.
But if no one else has anything else to say, should we wrap it up here, Keith?
Yeah, man. We're just here hanging out with these guys, and I guess they don't want to hang out with us anymore. But no, it's fine. No, we really appreciate you guys being here. Let's see. I'm new. Can you still make money on meme coins? Oof. Listen.
So yeah, we can talk about this real quick before we wrap up. I would say no, unless you are like the 1% of the 1%. I think that meme coins will go crazy when things start to move. But if you're trying to make money when things are slow in meme coins, like that's a dangerous game I would not touch. It's very much PvP in general. And now there's very few people playing the game that the chances of you winning are almost zero because most things are a rug pull. Unless you have inside information on these projects, you won't be able to tell.
And like that's the game, by the way. Like
Yes.
even last year when it was like popping, bro, like there were group chats where to people who knew. And if you didn't know, you didn't know. And you
You
were
got
gonna get
cooked.
dumped on. Like you could
Yes.
get lucky and catch a wave. And if you just weren't greedy enough, get back out. But like
Yeah.
90% of the time, you're going to get waxed. Period.
I'm a massive believer of meme coins, and actually now might be a good time to accumulate proven meme coins that have staying power. That could be a good bet. But in terms of trying to pick new ones starting at a time like this, very difficult game to do. So I would more so if you're looking for meme coins, go look at what else is out there in terms of the ones that may be undervalued right now. Because meme coins in a shitty market get destroyed because they're pure camaraderie. Basically, it's pure like I want to be involved with this, and not many people want to be involved with them going down.
Correct.
So I
Yeah.
think fart coins seriously undervalued. I think
Interesting.
genuinely I do, right? Because you also have to remember like there's some bets that I've made that to an outsider would sound like the dumbest stuff ever. But if you understand how people operate within certain spaces, you okay, like let's say for example in crypto, right? People love anti-establishment narratives, right? And what's funnier than sending a coin called fart coin to billions of dollars in market cap? There's nothing funnier than that. That's hilarious, right? And so if you get to the core, oh, go ahead.
I would not touch Fartcoin with a 10,000-foot pole. I just want to have that on record.
I'm not saying to touch fart coin, but I do think that fart coin will be a big runner. What's the current market cap? Let's look at that. Fart.
I think
Fart
I
coin.
think I think that joke was made. And now if you buy, you are now the joke.
You think so?
That's how I look at that one.
You don't think Fartcoin comes back from the dead?
Not even a slick.
Whoever smelt it dealt it, brother. Come on.
On record, if
Yeah.
Fartcoin goes back and creates a new all-time high,
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Whoa.
I just
I was hoping for something a lot bigger. But okay, let's talk about Fartcoin for a little bit here, okay? So these cult coins is what they're largely called. All things considered, like it's maintained a price point. Of course, it's coming down quite a bit, but I would have expected it would have been nuked even more than this. And so if you look at this before, usually if you want to look for a meme coin that can have some staying power, is after it tanked, it came back to life. That's one of the best indications of the fact that this could stay around for quite a while. And so this thing went from $1 or $2 and then tanked down to 25 cents and then got back up to 165. Like that's a pretty impressive achievement for a meme coin called Fartcoin. And so I do think it'll establish a new all-time high.
I'm taking over the screen share. I'm showing my chart. I don't like your
Okay,
chart.
go for it. What's
Look,
this?
look at this. Same thing, but just a
Yeah.
little bit more data here. All right. Look, this thing came down here. What you really wouldn't want to see is it ever making a new low. Okay, that's how I look at it. All right.
Yeah.
And it
Great
did.
call.
All right. And I see this as one of those, what do you call it? The frown of death or whatever they call it. This pattern here is it's pretty much infinitely going to go in this direction. That's how I look at it. Now, listen, like I said, if I'm wrong, y'all can
You're wrong.
roast me for the rest of my life.
No, it's not really roastable because it's a fair thing to say. But I personally do think that Fartcoin will rebound and touch an all-time high. But
We'll revisit it.
what else? Pardon?
We'll revisit that one.
Yeah, I think that'll come later in the cycle. But we got a question here by Real. How do y'all feel about NFT? Do you mean the technology or do you mean the JPEGs that people bought, like the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs? We talked about that and other NFT projects. Because personally, I think NFTs are really undervalued right now because no one wants to hold something that dumb when things aren't going well. What?
I'm just laughing because it always comes down to Ben shilling memes and meme coins. I mean, excuse me, NFTs and meme coins. And I'm
Because
just
I
the
understand, like,
antithesis.
It's so okay, the problem that people make when they assess meme coins or NFTs is that they look through a lens of the mainstream public. That's really dumb because they don't need to buy it for the price to go crazy. Like the NFT world, it being small isn't really a con because not that many people have money, right? That's like
For
saying
sure.
like the fine art market is like a dead market because you don't
Mhm.
have money.
Facts
Okay.
though.
Like, you gotta think about what do these rich people care about? And I think they love funny, dumb shit quite a bit, right? Like, they think it's funny, right? If you became a millionaire from something silly like crypto, then you become a massive advocate for something like Fartcoin. Or there's some NFT projects that I love that are, like, crazy, vulgar, and dumb, and I just think they also have there's one project in particular. If you do enough research, you'll find what I'm talking about. And I think the price will go absolutely absurd. It's an NFT project with like under 10,000 in it. And it's got some very large public supporters that have a fair amount of trust in the crypto space. So
What's
they have massive. Go
what's the
ahead.
floor on that project?
The last time I checked, it was around one ETH. So
Okay.
like 4,000 ish dollars or
Okay.
3,500. Um, and so that should help you find it. And obviously, people can't like buy this, but I don't want to openly talk about something this expensive because someone may do it and ruin their life, and I don't want to be part of that. But but I genuinely think this will go so absurd because it's got a lot of public supporters that are already very influential in crypto in general, and they have large audiences where a lot of their audience is going to come into a lot of money if they've been listening to their advice, which I know they have been because they're paying for this, they're giving their time. And so they'll want to participate in something as dumb as this when they're rich too. Financial advice, quit your job and buy work.
That's
So,
pretty good.
but definitely do not do that. I'm not giving financial advice, and that's definitely not the advice that I would give if I did. But Real had a response here. I'll touch this quick and then give it back to you, Keith. So the tech behind it. I feel like NFTs, it's going to be the next ownership. I would love to see it be a part of real world assets. So yeah, NFTs are going to be everywhere. It's going to be integrated into so many different things where people don't even understand that it's being used. Okay, so here's another one from Underdog. Is Pump a platform that lets people make meme coins? I know they do have really high revenue streams, I believe. Not an expert in memes, but I think they let people build meme coins possibly. Yeah, so it's one of the biggest meme coin platforms. And I definitely would not advise playing around in there because it's definitely a casino and one with like horrendous odds, especially now when things aren't moving. But there's a lot of these launch pads for meme coins. We showed another one on a previous stream that's called Fun. It's the same sort of thing as Fun, but instead of Solana, it's for Cardano. So there's tons of these platforms.
Yeah, and to answer what I think you're saying there is like if you wanted to bet on meme coins making a resurgence, then yeah, that probably would be the highest conviction thing that I would do. That's just how I always look at any bet. Like, what's the underlying denominator? Like, what's the thing that if any of that happens, I can still win? And
Mhm.
yeah, so like pump their little thing would make sense if that's the thing that you believe in, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I'll show the screen one more time, and don't worry, it's not Fartcoin. And then we'll wrap it up, call it a day. So Pump actually has their own coin, so like they have their own meme coin. And last time I checked, I think it was in the top 100. Let's see if yeah. So here, right here, they have a meme
Yeah.
coin that's at 55. If the market moves and people get excited about meme coins again, it'll probably do okay. But there's also a lot of memes up here that have been beaten down pretty bad, and so I do think there's some with some serious staying power. Like I feel comfortable talking about Pengu. So Pudgy Penguins meme coin, I genuinely think they'll become highly relevant, and I think in their lifetime they pass Doge. I think that's a very attainable thing. So that's something to keep an eye on if you want to touch meme coins. There's not a lot of meme coins that I would touch personally.
The fact that Pingu is just like a top 100 and just has like been there is wild, dude. That says a lot for sure about that project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Luca is an absolute legend. We'll have him on the show in the not too distant future. He bought Pudgy Penguins after it was created and has turned it into a massive juggernaut that is also massive in Asia. Like they're so big in Asia, so it's very important to understand. But if we got nothing else, do you want to wrap it here, Keith?
I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that I don't actually um hate NFTs. All right. Now, meme coins, we'll save that for a later discussion. But the thing about NFTs been that you'll always have as an edge is that you really understand culture and social media and all of that, and recognize that these subcultures exist within these spaces that we're in. And that's also the thing that gives you the edge there. And so when I talk crap about NFTs and meme coins, guys, it's just because I know that I don't have that. And so I
He's
just don't play
trolling.
that game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do the same shit back to you. We're just roasting each other out of fun. It's that's it, right? But one thing I will take away from that, or that I think you should take away from that if you're listening to this, is that leverage your own unique advantages, right? Like, why? Because of my background and the things that I've studied at deep length, NFTs and more culturally significant things are easier for me to predict because I have experience in that, right? And that's also true with why do you think Keith has the conviction in the bets that he's made? Because he's put in the reps, the time under tension to figure out where these are. And so that's what I love about crypto so much is that there are so many different lanes where you would have an insider's advantage because there's a foundational shift, everything changes, right? So like, where do you know way more than the average person? And for me, that's like NFTs and kind of like meme coins and dumb stuff like that, because I just have to pre-predict narratives that will get spread.
Yep. And to wrap that piece up, it's like Zcash is the perfect example of that playing out for people who really understood the privacy preserving technologies over the past 10 years, right?
Great
Now they
point.
got their dub. So it's not
And I
about
think it'll keep, go ahead.
and so it's not about, oh, I need to find the next Zcash. It's like, no, you need to double down on the things that you get and that
Yes.
you can be the best at.
That's so important because if you just try to sheerly chase narratives, if you aren't there before the narrative is in a way where everyone understands it, you've missed a lot of the opportunity. So go do some research. We've said this so many times, but I'm gonna say it again. Like, go through the top 100 coins and read their white paper or get ChatGPT to explain what it is they're trying to solve. And where do you have like almost insider levels information from either the work that you've done in the past, the things you're really passionate about, like where you are already spending your time, and how can you use that to fast track your way to inside information simply from what you've already done? Like, that's why I was so bullish on NFTs, because I was like, this is culturally significant. And also when you factor in, there's no social media strategist that wouldn't be bullish on NFTs because of the impact of, say, the real estate of a profile picture. Like, it sounds so dumb, but that really does hold weight. And it's proven true even to this day, where the founder of LinkedIn just recently bought a CryptoPunk.
Wow.
And also, there's money to be made in the markets, even when it's boring. I've made my most amount of money in NFTs in the last 12 months, right?
Whoa.
No one would think that, right? Like, people would say I'm a freaking idiot, but it's because when the FOMO is gone, the market is created. Like, that's what the actual market is, right? Because in a state of euphoria, it's people that know stuff screwing over those that don't. But when it gets to a baseline, it's like, okay, this is what this is.
Love it, dude.
That's it, man. All right.
Good
Well,
stuff.
we appreciate all y'all joining in here. We'll be live again next Tuesday. We do have a guest, so definitely mark your calendars, turn on the notifications if you have yet to do so. And that's all from my end. Keith, what else do you got for the people?
That's it. Peace and power to you all.
That's it, man. All right. And Kurt, you want to take us off stage, brother?